So, hey everybody, and welcome to the first episode of When Ops Meets Dev. How are we all doing? We got Robbie and Swami on the line. How are you doing, guys?
Hey, very good.
Hey Johnny, doing good. It's a weekend, or it's already started. It's Friday, 9:30 p.m. India time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like we said in our intro, we did our intro video a couple of weeks back, and we kind of described what we were going to go through in this series. So this series has got the potential to take on legs, Swami, Robbie. Yeah, I think we're starting off as simply as we think we can, with looking to build an e-commerce solution out of microservices, looking to package that software up into containers and deploy those containers somewhere and run them in real time across a cloud platform eventually. So look, there's going to be loads of different moving components and moving parts to this, and I'm really excited personally to kind of be involved with you guys, because as the title of this show is When Ops Meets Dev, it's it's a play on that DevOps word, but not quite. It's a case of great, we can develop software and put it into the real world, into production systems, but how do we do some of these things? And I guess this is what this series is all about, is us three kind of hitting our heads together and trying to figure some of this out as we go. So, I mean, on that note, Swami, Robbie, should we hand over, and do you want to give a bit of an intro?
Yep. Thanks, Johnny. So, as we three started discussing about this a month and a half ago, and started putting our heads on this, and started how do we start creating a single microservice, and what will be the learning, and then how do we use polyglot data store, and how do you develop an entire e-commerce solution, not coming up with an entirely cooked in food and showcase that. We thought of to go with a different approach. We thought of we will start from scratch. Like, this is the idea which we three came up with. Like, this is some of the products or tools and microservices we needed, and we have thought process, and we started with this first microservice. Robbie?
So yeah, you're talking about the products microservice. And in that case, even though we're going to be hosting this largely, this project will be happening in Azure, we elected to use MongoDB. The MongoDB is a document store database, and we're looking at hosting it on the Atlas cloud service that MongoDB provides.
I mean, I guess is that a good place to start then, guys, in terms of the development of the microservices themselves? Obviously we're looking in this episode, we're covering a few key areas, Swami. That right? We're looking at, talking about. I mean, I guess we'll show the code of to the product's microservices application.
So what will happen in this is we took this first microservices, one of this microservice we took, and we wanted to use different data stores. So one of the thing we choose is this MongoDB, and what we do is this single microservice. This we are planning to build right from clean slate all the way to Kubernetes deployment. So that will happen in 5 to 6 sessions. So what is there in the first session? In the first session, we'll discuss about the solution map, and we'll discuss some of the prerequisites, and we'll show. I mean, I'm talking about this 5 to 6 episodes, the prerequisites. We will see how you can work with Windows and Visual Studio 2022. And if you're Ubuntu 20 flavor with .NET 6, how can you work with Visual Studio Code? And if you're on Mac OS, how can you work with Visual Studio for Mac or Visual Studio Code? And then this is a session one. We will start discussing Docker desktop. We will discuss, and we'll discuss something about the Mongo, and then what all the current features we have at this point of time in the API. We'll see that. So the base minimum code, we have it at this point of time. Incrementally, we'll develop it. And then we'll discuss about the Docker file and see that how this Docker file is getting built. And then we'll discuss about the Docker Compose. And we discuss about the Docker Compose and the Docker Compose override, where we are overriding some of the key things, and how many ways you can execute this project, this particular microservice. So you can execute using IIS, you can execute using Kestrel, you can execute using Docker and Docker Compose. For this, the first 3 bulleted points, the MongoDB will be inside the Docker container. So these things will access that. And the fourth point is,
when we're demonstrating it live, we're going to be demonstrating it on a local dev environment. And so you would be doing it inside of Docker. Whereas whenever we deploy it later on, we may not be setting it up as a Docker instance. We might be just using the Mongo Atlas, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mix and match. Like if someone wants, if they think that there is a little lesser load, they can put it in the Docker and put it as part of the Docker Compose and deploy. If they think that they need larger computing power and the hits on the database is pretty heavy, they can go ahead with the Mongo Atlas. Different flavors, that depends upon what is the workload which you are expecting. But before choosing that, we have to do a proper performance testing before going ahead with that. So this will be the session 1, Johnny.
Yeah.
So shall we jump into that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just for my layman's term brain, just so I can comprehend what we got going on then. So we're trying to really look at something relatively straightforward in the sense that we've got this microservices application programmed up, ready to go, called products. We've got it sat there. We need to deploy that into a container. But in order for that products API, that microservice that's in that container, to actually function and store data, it needs to store that in a database. And for that, we're using Mongo, and we're going to show how those 2 container images can be run locally using Docker Desktop and, like you say, there other execution methods, Swami. That's what we're going to go through in this session, just to show how we run the code in a container, how we spin up a storage element to sit alongside that container, how those 2 things can communicate with each other, and then obviously jump in to show how we can execute that over those methodologies. And I'm right in thinking that, guys. Yeah, that's basically what we're going to show over this session.
You nailed it down.
Perfect. And I'm hoping to learn quite a bit on this as well. So yeah, let's jump in. Looking forward to it.
Likewise. So the first thing is we are using Docker Desktop. This is Windows virtual machine. So Johnny has got all the URLs of this repository. This repository is still work in progress, but you can grab this session 1's code and you guys can play around. We have CI/CD, but it's lot a lot many things are going to come. I just don't want to derail the current session. So you can see that a lot of things are there. So I want to focus what we are. So if you see that, just wanted to show this one piece that at this point of time, we are focusing on Windows, Visual Studio 2022, .NET 6, and Docker Desktop. So in the second session, it will be Mac OS and Ubuntu. It's the .NET 6 with Visual Studio Preview, Mac,
Yeah.
and VS Code. Okay.
I guess
so
is that to show that we can run the same .NET applications across multiple platforms
.NET everywhere.
effectively? Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
.NET everywhere, and also the tooling, What are some of the tooling which we are using, and how can we leverage the shell scripts or the commands, CLI commands, to make our lives easy?
Got
Okay.
you.
So
Right, guys, we
so-
got 50 minutes.
right.
We've already set some of that up. The initial install that you'll run, or the environment, the script that you'll run to prepare everything, will just grab all the prerequisites, I imagine.
Right. So this is the Docker desktop. Eventually, we are going to go to the Kubernetes, but at this point of time, we will start with Docker desktop, and we need to have this one of the Mongo container. So we have this Mongo as one of the container inside this Docker instance on our local box. We can have the Atlas also, so Mongo Atlas, or you can have your own community edition. But just we wanted to run through this Docker container environment. As this is used for the community service, we are using the free version, community edition of the Docker desktop, and it is giving us a good number of facilities where we can have multiple images, different volumes. Okay, so containers and apps, we have a lot of things, and here in this Mongo container we can spend a few minutes on this one. Again, we'll time and again we will visit here. So this is the place where we can see the logs, what is happening inside the container. And if you want to inspect few of those things, we can come and see the path, what all the paths are here, where we can go and search few of these items, and we will get the statistics. And also, if we want, you can get into the exec. That means at this point of time, Docker exec IT interactive with this uh, image, the container ID, bin sh.
So
So
that is actually giving you a terminal inside of your virtual machine that is
Yeah.
loaded in the Docker image.
Exactly, inside this Docker container, the container shop Mongo is a container. At this point of time, we are inside the shop Mongo container, and I've executed Mongo. So now it gives us a Mongo shell. And we do have products DB as well as the catalog DB. So use products DB, and we switch and show collections. So that shows the collections. So db dot products dot find. I can find all the products inside this, or I can do pretty TTY. I think I can spell pretty. So it gives a pretty print of this. So that's like a quick 30,000 foot view of Docker, and how can we see all the containers. I'm exiting from this, so you can have a quick view of all these containers. Robbie, anything to add from your side, Robbie, on this, from the Docker desktop perspective?
Well, I was just wondering, we didn't actually show how you got the Docker image loaded up in your Docker desktop. Do we have instructions for that to illustrate?
Oh yeah, right. So we
Did you use a Docker Compose for that, Swami, or did you literally grab that Mongo image from from a container registry like Docker Hub or somewhere
Uh,
else?
Somewhere else. I'll show you right
Yeah.
away. I think I kept that instruction somewhere over here. Inside the scripts. I think I can locate it here. Looks like I didn't include it in the solution. Like somewhere in the starter. I just kept it.
If
Yeah.
if you prefer, we could we could apply that as an addendum, something to come back to if it's not readily available.
It is there. It is there. I think I will locate it in a minute. I'll quickly take 30 seconds of the time and should be able to locate it. If not, I will jump here. So actually, I forgot to move that instructions into this repository, but all these instructions are here. I need to move this one. Like, how do we execute this basket or this one? So we can go to this Docker Hub, hub.docker. We can go to this Docker Hub and we can search for what do we need. We need to have the Docker Mongo container. So we can search for Mongo. So this is applicable for all this npm packages or NuGet packages or any packages which you are using. So if you come and see that this is official image, right? And we can get into this and see that how many downloads are happening, and also we need to verify that how many people are using and how frequently they are updating this one, who's maintaining this. Because if we see some library or some container is being let's take, I have created some container, it is fancy and shiny trendy technology, and you started using it, Robbie, and next week I didn't have this much energy to do my community service. I stopped doing it, or I might have a bug and I'm not fixing it. There will be problem. So before choosing any image, do a due diligence, like how many downloads are there, how frequently this is getting released. Okay, that's just a tip. And also here are the instructions, we will move that. And also we have the instructions that how can we create this, some of the things which we have executed it, but rest of the commands we will eventually we will move it by next episode. We'll move this to our repository.
Yeah.
Cool. That makes sense. So did you have to do anything with that MongoDB, Swami? I mean, in terms of persistent storage for the data, where is that data actually being stored?
Okay, that's a good question for sure. Containers here in this volumes. If you come back to this one and go to this location, File Explorer, and if you go to this WSL, and that's where you will have all these volumes. Now,
So, okay.
So does
that,
the volume name match to the ID, or like how would I? You have that link saved, but how did you get that link?
oh, okay, yeah, that's a good question.
this is a grill
yeah.
Swami session.
It looks like I'm being questioned here. Am I under arrest or what?
not yet.
Okay, thank God. Okay, you see that the data
DataDB, yeah.
DataDB. It's an FAAC. This is some of the containers.
Okay.
So we can come back and this, and these are ordered. So if you can come and see that.
While you're digging that up, while you're finding it and opening it, I think John and I could talk about that really quickly. Those mount points are just that's just specific to this particular instance. Not everything has a DataDB. It's just MongoDB chooses to have a mount point for its data independently, right? Or that image.
Well, I guess it's because Robbie, in terms of microservices, the idea is that they're stateless microservices in containers. In that, if one goes wrong or gets shut down, you can spin that up. So the persistence of the data, it needs to be held in a location outside of that container. I'm right in thinking that, aren't I?
Yeah, that's why it's mounting it separately. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, for those watching that kind of, if you're new to containerization or those kind of concepts, effectively, you've got a MongoDB container running MongoDB, the application, if you like, but then the data that's being stored is being mounted to a persistent storage area. So you kind of need to think of that in terms of where it's at the minute. It's being stored in a serialized volume on your network drive by the looks of it, Swami.
Yeah, it's in the WSL, but when we deploy to Kubernetes, that will be in the volumes again. So
Yeah.
it will be separate storage. So the advantage of that is tomorrow if I delete this container,
Yeah.
tomorrow if I delete this container, all I can do is I can execute this particular command to bring this up and running. I will say that docker run -d-p so and so with the same image, same this thing. So it knows that where is this percent, it loads it. So we can give the volumes also that we are creating when we are doing the Docker compose. I'll show you the volumes also there.
Cool.
So that's how it builds this volumes. So
Awesome stuff.
anything?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to talk, I do have some notes about MongoDB just to point that out, since I take it you want to mark this section as covered, or the section.
No, I think that we have covered this. So shall we go to the second step?
Okay, sure. So yeah, with I wanted to talk a little bit about the choice involved with MongoDB. We chose MongoDB because it's a pretty primary famous document store database. That is the type of database that it is, as opposed to, it's like basically a NoSQL database as opposed to a typical relational database. It contains a series of documents. So in a document store database, the schema is optional and can be applied. Schemas are basically constraints that describe the way the data relates to each other and the shape of the data that you're storing. The fact that you're just having a collection of documents that are indexed by ID or things of that nature means that you don't have to have a hard set of constraints before you start building out your data. Your data can evolve over time, can evolve rapidly. That also imparts on you a lot of responsibility to make sure that you keep your data normalized. You have consistency so that you can continue to use it as you change it over time. But it's generally a great choice. It's been a good choice for scalable development. Because it makes the fact that you have this type of data, the relaxation of a hard schema allows you to make the reads occur quickly.
Hello.
I think we've lost Robbie, have we? Robbie, we've lost your audio again for some reason.
Hey, Robbie, we lost your audio, please.
Oh.
Now you're back. Now you're back.
It gave me a little pop-up actually saying if you would like to stay on the page, and I would.
Okay. You should tell that, sure thing. I want to stay.
Yeah.
We lost the last sort of 5 or 10 seconds then, Robbie, just as you were finishing off there.
Okay, yeah. So I was just saying that the relaxation on the constraints allows the data to be stored in a fashion that makes it very easily scalable, very easily shardable. It makes that's the scaling method that would be available. You would be able to just divide up the data. And it makes reads on the data very fast. This is because you can just collect whatever particular information is relevant to the document. It can be free form. And
So
it's
Robbie, is that like one of the reasons now, kind of if we were to compare, why wouldn't we build a SQL database, a relational database to store this? Is it purely down to the fact that, MongoDB is you don't have to worry about that kind of schema of a database? Is that one of the prime reasons you'd want to use something like this, or are there other reasons apart from
So
licensing?
I think from a developer's perspective, it's actually different. It's the scalability of it and the
okay.
ease of accessing that data. But I think that's actually one of the differentiating features of a NoSQL database is that that the constraint relationships do not define the data. So that's why it's just it's just a bunch of data. If you've heard of RAID arrays, you have up to RAID 5, and then you have just a bunch of disks, and you lose some of the structure with just a bunch of disks, but it still gives you a lot of resiliency and speed, and in a similar way. I don't know why I said that, but that's something that stuck for me. I thought it was an interesting relationship.
No, it makes a lot of sense, I think, in terms of using SQL to kind of if you're developing, I guess, something straight off the ground, and that you're developing in an agile way, I suppose you may not necessarily know the full extent to what your data is going to look like day one. So the ability to use something like Mongo, I guess, gives you that flexibility with how you program and how you develop your application.
Yeah, that's true. And the speed comes out of the fact that because you don't have this set of relationships to maintain in producing the data. Whenever you want to get a lot of varied information, you don't have to produce a lot, a view or produce a bunch of joins in order to get your data.
Got you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So they offer the MongoDB Community Edition. That's a free edition that is available. You can self-host that. That's what's in the Docker image. And then they also offer a fully managed hosted service, which is the Atlas database. And Atlas comes with a lot of pre-builts. It comes with full text search in your in your collections. And there are versions of Atlas that are serverless, so you just pay for your usage. I don't know if we're exploring very many of these topics. Another thing that is built to work well with Mongo, both in Atlas and in the Community Edition, is they provide an interface to load this data and interact with it. Essentially, maintain an understanding of when updates have occurred, and to to manage your view of that data, called Realm, which I also don't think we'll be using, but it's just that they have an interface that's kind of basically like Firestore is another one that does the same thing. And I jumped into that, but I kind of missed a part. One of the things that this gives you is that one of the things that you can have in your database is you can have triggers, so you can react to changes. And that's what would make that sort of a managed interface of use.
Okay, it's similar to the Cosmos DB. They have the change feed kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Cool.
Anything
Excellent.
else to add, Robbie?
That's all I've got on my little checklist.
Okay. Okay. So Mongo Mongo Docker container. So as Robbie already mentioned, we can have our own community edition installed on our laptop, as well as if we are not comfortable with that, we can have the Mongo Atlas. And why do we need to choose Mongo Docker container? Suppose if you want to start something little fast, you don't need to have that much heavy setup. We can quickly create this Mongo database with this one simple command over here. Just do this command, these two commands. There you go. You are already having this Mongo set up on your box with very less space occupied. So you don't need to worry about installing, uninstalling, or upgrading. All you can do is delete this, bring the updated Mongo, and spin up the container. So that way, it's very little investment you can get going on that. And this another thing is the Mongo Compose is the one which we use it to connect to these different places. And Mongo GUI container, Docker container is another one where you can create it and connect it to this. It's a web interface. We will showcase that in the session 2. Okay, so with that, I think we can get into the current features, then the execution. I mean, this will be, guys, mix and match. Robbie and me will speak something, and then we'll showcase something. Then we'll come back and correlate the all 4 executions. But we would like to show bits and pieces how it works and what it is. We'll do a deep dive. It's not we will touch upon, but we'll do a deep dive as much as possible. Robbie, to you.
I think we actually started with MongoDB, looking at the Mongo GUI interface to the Docker containers. We were actually looking at
Right.
So you've got highlighted now the layered architecture, and for that, it would be helpful. Is your screen being shared, by the way, currently in the stream?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you load up the layered architecture diagram?
Is this one or
no, now we're looking at the architecture of a single service. So yeah, that one.
Yeah, this one.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually trouble seeing it.
I think I'll load it here.
Yeah.
That way, this will. I can zoom it up a little bit. Is this any better?
Do you want me to? Yeah, that's a little cleaner. Thank you for that. I really would ask you normally to be in the code so we can actually bounce back to the code, but I think for right now this is fantastic. Maybe you can jump in when you have more that you want to comment on or go into some detail. So what we have here is an architecture where when we start our service, the box on the left there describes the basic components that are going into that service. The core components are going to be things like environment variables, common environment variables, and so that you can get rid of your magic variables and things like that.
Here, when you're talking about, I'll come and switch here.
Actually, yeah, if you can open it up, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, we'll open it. Yeah, back to you, Robbie.
But I do need to see the diagram because I don't know.
Okay, I'll switch it. I'll switch.
What was the infrastructure? I don't remember the infrastructure section.
Oh, infrastructure is a section where we are injecting all the dependencies. We want to keep the program.cs pretty clean, so we just do one call, all the product context and repositories or anything you want to do a dependency injection. We have written an extension method for that services. So all these dependencies, yeah, go ahead, Robbie.
No, that's fine. So yeah, you could put that into your program CS. This is loading in the dependencies that we're going to use.
Exactly. Well, I'll take one quick minute before handing it to you. The entire intention is, let's assume that I have I'm dealing with 4 different contexts or something else. So I have to write these 4 lines here, and the program.cs will be a bigger one. Or for some other things, this has got some other dependencies or some other libraries has to be loaded. So to make it pretty little cleaner, what we are doing is we have created an extension method. We are calling it as infrastructure. And like in this case, we are having only one repository. Imagine a bigger microservice. There might be 6-7 repositories, or some of the repositories might need something else. The strongly typed configuration or many different dependencies has to be injected. So that is the reason we have created this infrastructure and offloading the responsibility of injecting those dependencies to this infrastructure project. Back to you, Robbie.
I will say that in program CS, we are leaving things like the Swagger. So there's there's basically vendor level configuration still going on in the program .cs file, whereas in our infrastructure library, we're doing things that are particular to our use case.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, on the right hand side, I believe, is the description of the data. Yeah, and on the left is the repository, which is so the data is the if I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, that's the one that actually gets the configuration for the MongoDB and reflects that. It's got basically the DAO that is available. Repository.
Yeah, the context similar to the entity framework context, EF core context. Similarly, we created a context class so that there is a centralized location with which we will speak to the MongoDB.
Yeah, that's right. So this is just your infrastructure to working as a proxy to get the data from the MongoDB, like the proxy pattern to connect to the MongoDB. And then on the
Correct.
other side, we have the repository, and the repository describes actually the repository pattern, which it basically is it's very similar to a DAO. So if you want to be able to access data, you need a data access object to do that. And in a relational system, you would normally have an object for each table, but we're not really doing something that's table related. So it's not like the primary way of expressing our interface to our data is going to be through DAOs. We can instead more closely relate to the business logic, the business perspective for what that data would look like. And that's basically what a repository pattern is, actually. It abstracts away the interface to the specifics of the data and allows you to just describe business intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let me revert back if I have done some changes. So let me come back to. I think we have covered the layered architecture. Let's discuss about this strongly typed configuration. So there are multiple ways we can store the configuration. One of the example what we will take is we have this Mongo settings. We have the collection name, we have the database name, we have the connection string. So no one is stopping us from accessing this individually. That means if I want to have the um, connection string here, so I can very well do this builder dot configuration off, and I can get this information over here and then put it inside this configuration to get its value. The problem is what we are seeing is, let's first see this and then we will speak about why did we choose the strongly typed configuration. So if I'm executing this, if I'm executing this, it will come and hit this debugger, and then we will speak. Just give me 1 minute time. Let it hit this debugger point. Okay, it hit the debugger point. Now, if you see this in the builder, and you see this the configuration, let me put it inside the quick watch. So if I put it inside this quick watch, you see this builder configuration. That guy is loading the configuration from 6 different locations. So is memory configuration and change configuration, app settings development. If you have test stage or different thing, it loads, and it loads from secret.json, and also it loads from here. So all I can do is, if I need to access any one of those guy, here, if I come in here and do a mouse over, if it doesn't show, we can go into quick watch or add to watch. You can see that that's giving me this piece of information. So this way we can have access to granular level. But the problem is, if I want the same piece of information at multiple places, I we thought that it is not good idea to pass the configuration all over the place. We can send it. No one, it's no harm. But the thing is that we are feeling that it is little heavy, because it's not coming with this one single piece what we needed. It's coming with the six different things, and many advantages are there. There might be a use case where we might need to pass the configuration. We are not denying that we can't send it, but in our case specifically, as we are seeing here in the data project, where we are creating the context, the product context, all we need is the connection string of the MongoDB database and collection. So we just need this block, line number 9 to line number 13. So for that, what we are doing is we are storing a strongly typed configuration here. That means, let me remove this. That means we are saying that get this configuration section and load it as MongoDB settings. And if someone asks for iMongoDB settings, give him an instance of MongoDB settings, which is an I options. So that way, what it will happen is, when it comes to this guy, when it comes to this product context, it injects, when we are asking for iMongoDB settings, that will inject a copy of this. It's a singleton, isn't it? So it will get this entire configuration session. So that way, what is happening is, we are sending only the configuration whatever is needed to the particular dependency injection, and also we are not sending any extra information like how much we need it. We are just sending only those things. Robbie, anything to add from your side, Robbie?
No, that was well said. That was really well demonstrated too. It's good to be able to jump in the debugger and actually look at the value live and see why you chose that.
Yeah, right. So when we can show that also live here at this point of time. If I put in the debugger over here, and that's good, Robbie. We can show this piece, and while we are showcasing the dependency injection, we can do a deep dive as we were doing the other day. We can do a deep dive to showcase what is happening. Now see this, we want to try this out, and I click on execute. So when you come and you see this, we are getting exact information what we needed. See that? Without any pain. That means you deposit money into your bank account, you take your ATM card, wherever you see an ATM machine, go and withdraw money. It's something like that. Okay, you load your dependencies here, anywhere across the project you want it, you say that, hey, give me this, and this guy is going to give you nicely. The couple of advantages is, in the previous example where I was showing that the builder.configuration, inside that inside the square brackets, I was giving A:B, or those kind of things. Here I don't need to worry about this, because I know this, the entire block, these 3 blocks, I am dealing with 3 different variables. Now I don't need to deal with 3 different variables. I need to deal with one class. That entire class is coming. I want to use 1 variable, I can use. I want to use 3 variables, I can use. Back to you, Robbie.
Yeah, no,
Anything?
that was a great demonstration of that. I noticed on the other view that you were looking at, we were actually looking at the results of the Swagger setup, which is like the next step in our presentation here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I thought it was actually really important to make sure that we had Swagger up. I was surprised how easily you had set that up.
Oh, thanks to Microsoft and the architects inside the Microsoft for that.
I used Swashbuckle before myself, but I did it with a lot of manual configuration, and you can get a lot of documentation out of the box.
Exactly. I still remember in 1997 when I was learning a programming, I did some small program in Fox Pro, I assume. I went and I showed it to my tutor. He said that, good job, but you should thank to the architects and the programmer software engineers who created this. Using their tools, you are doing something and you are so happy. Imagine the guy's effort who created that. So I'm attributing, or I'm thanking the architects and all the software engineers, testers, and everyone who developed this .NET 6 and Visual Studio 2022.
Yeah, so I'm hoping actually the people who play with this project themselves will be in a similar situation regarding our Swagger documentation. If you look back on the webpage that you have for the running application, you'll see that it gives us the ability to, and later you would actually be able to go in and modify what types of information you can post whenever, or get, etc. Whenever you, I guess get is going to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can configure that. But we actually did configure the description in a couple of places.
Yeah. So this XML file, this is very, very simple. Previously, we used to sweat a lot. Now, this one simple thing, where did we configure this? We will show that, and then we'll come back. You can go to that properties of this, and inside this properties where we go and add the XML block. So that creates this all that XML documentation, your documentation file that generates. So it is coming here, products.api XML. So that we are saying that assembly get execution assembly to get name.name XML, because that's the name which it is creating, and we are loading this add swagger options. We are saying include XML comments. So we have come in here and we added some of the things. We are going to improvise that, and thanks to Robbie for chasing on this. Actually, we didn't have this in the first cut of the code, but Robbie.
So these
was
look
very
like Java docs or JS docs. You can just put in comment descriptions for the, descriptions for, like, it's a summary for the description for the method. You can describe the parameters. You can even type the parameters, I believe. You can describe the return type.
Yeah, exactly. The parameters here, you can say that what parameters it is, what it returns, and the types of HTTP response we can expect, like not found or okay, whatever is that. So this gives extra information which it was not there. And Robbie, you were very particular on adding this. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I'm glad we did that. That's using Swashbuckle. That's you had to NuGet that into the project.
Oh, this everything comes out of the box here except these two lines we need to add it, but rest everything was coming out of the box, and you can see that it was pretty cool. Anything else to cover on this, Robbie?
I think we did that.
Okay, cool. So let's go to this phase, which is very interesting phase. I really love speaking hours together on that. And I don't want John to cut me off this stream saying that, Swami, you speak yourself, but we don't want to trouble the audience.
I could never cut you off, Swami.
Thank you. So coming back to this app settings JSON and secrets.json. So we will. I'm coming from the real-time scenario. Whatever happened with my life. I was practicing in SQL Azure 2 years ago, I assume. And I was testing one of the connection string. It was live SQL Azure's connection string. I tested it and I checked into the GitHub and I went back home. Next day morning, when I opened my laptop, there is an email from Microsoft or GitHub. They said that you have stored a live connection, and they have given me the blob reference also. Here is the blob reference where you stored this app settings, and they scanned the code and they were able to execute a connection, and the connection was hitting the SQL server, live SQL server, because I stored using secret.
You stored connection strings. You stored credentials to access the SQL database on a live.
Exactly, SQL Azure. Yes, yeah. That's my personal project. I mean, my Hello World subscription, and it's just a Hello World database. But the thing is that when I'm doing it Hello World, imagine a scenario that's Friday evening and there is a bug in your plate and you want to fix it. That is not happening in dev, but it is happening in pre-prod or stage. So definitely you will store this connection string to the MongoDB connection string. It's not your local Mongo Docker instance, Docker container, but you're storing the credentials of Mongo, which is of stage or pre-prod. You fix the bug. You will definitely pat on your back, and you will check in the code. Go watch movie with your friends. Monday morning when you come back, that's no more secret. The entire department will know the secrets of your Mongo connection string. Okay, so the so what some of the things what I prefer is, and again thanks to all the architects, whoever's brain is behind this, you can use this manage user secrets. Once upon a time this was like a lot of things to learn. Now it is pretty cool thing. Now you can see this when I compare this app settings. If I open the containing folder, that app settings is within the source control. That app settings is within the source control. But when I right mouse click on the secrets JSON and open the containing folder, it does not belong to my source code location. That is coming from my different location. You can see this, that is coming from C users Lord Krishna app roaming. It's somewhere else. It doesn't come um, uh, from my source code repository. So I can store any connection string as of now. I can store anything until and unless someone is watching on my shoulders and they get the credentials that I'm not responsible. But rest of the times I'm sure that the
Swami,
secrets.
or they're watching you on a live stream.
Okay, I'm closing it. Okay, so that I will. That's how I lean towards the secrets.json.
So I got a couple of questions about that. You have a secrets.json file that works when you're developing it live, but then whenever you save it to your repository, nobody else can get those secrets. But that means also that the server can't get those secrets when you push it up. So is this going into the? Do you have to configure something like the key vault, or how do you have to get this data whenever you use it on the server?
Oh, okay. So that's pretty good question. So if you see this and this, the secrets.json. So you see that whatever the settings we have in the app settings, this block, that block I need to replicate it here. I need to replicate in the secrets.json. In the secrets.json. Okay. And here in this app settings, we will create the structure, what it is needed. We'll just create the structure so that any other developer who's working, he should know that what parameters he should use, what values he should fill in. And for this gives an opportunity for the ops folks to create this in the templates, YAML templates. When they are pushing it to Kubernetes or app settings, they will create the app settings, but
So it goes to
these
the app
values,
settings.
yeah, these values will be in key vaults. So we'll do a reference to the key vaults in our app settings. So that's a multi-level security which we will showcase while we are deploying. In 2 episodes from now, we'll start showing that one. But at this point of time, that is here in the app settings. And secrets.json will protect you if you have something to store there and validate real quick.
Okay. So another thing you can do, just to cover this in a more general sense, sometimes you may not be working in a project that is working with app settings .json. In the case that you have app settings.json, you could add it, and you wanted to not not fully conform to that pattern for whatever reason. You could add it. You would still at least be able to add it to your git ignore so that it doesn't get posted into your repository. And in that case, you could also look at adding example files that describe, just like the regular one that he's got here in his repository. It's going to have basic data, but then that gets overridden with his secrets. You would want to at least have that template so that you know what the shape of the settings should be for the application.
Exactly. Actually, it should be like your collection name, your database name, your MongoDB connection string, some kind of English message, so the other developer will know that he should pick it up from there. That's correct. So the next one is related to the repository pattern.
I went into a little bit of detail about that earlier at the same time that I was talking about the layered
Right.
architecture. I actually described, I thought,
Mm.
the relationship between a DAO and a repository pattern. But
Exactly.
okay, if there's more
Exactly.
that you guys wanted to know, let me know.
Yeah, I think we will show this dependency injection. Johnny, I think we will need 10 minutes more. We will wrap up
Yeah,
real quick.
yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah,
So
we're doing good. Yeah, this is great.
thanks. So here, guys, I'll give you one example. It might sound funny, but imagine a scenario where you have an ATM card and you don't have money in your bank account. So what will happen? You go and try to withdraw money from any ATM card, you'll get the decline. So first we will see how someone gets declined. So I don't load money into my account and I go and swipe my ATM card, I'll get a transaction decline thing. So first we want to showcase that. So that's how it blows off. It doesn't go any further, or sometimes even if it goes further, it will it will fail in future.
What was
So
it
that
missing? What's the money that it's missing right now?
right now the product, the context, I think I will go and comment the repository one so that uh, we can showcase things live. uh, like let me imagine a scenario where we forgot to load the dependency to this guy, the repository dependencies. So it comes, the swagger comes. But when I'm trying to get all products and I do a try it out and click on execute, so that's when you will find it says that, hey, I'm unable to give you this instance of this I repository in this controller. So it is failing. That means I do not have money in my bank account, but still I'm trying to withdraw. So that's where we will see that dependency uh, injunction and dependency container. So what is this? Dependency container is like a bookshelf. You keep all the books, you pile up the books, and whatever the book you want, you go and read it. Similar to that, we are loading all the dependencies here in this
Show me.
place.
Can you show me that it's a dependency?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Can you show me that it's a dependency, like in the controller or wherever?
Exactly. I was about to come there. So what is happening is that's where we will see this live execution. So I'll put a debugger here in the controller. Now controller has got dependency on repository. So we'll go to that repository. Now, when we come to the repository, you can see that you have the read only and it has got a constructor injection. So this has got a dependency on I product context. So when we come to I product context here, I product context has got a parameterized constructor, but it doesn't have any dependency. So the last man standing in this queue, the last man standing in this queue is this I product context. So this is the guy who will get created first. Then this guy will get injected inside the product repository. Once the product repository has been constructed, that will get injected inside the controller. So what I will do is this, we have to break it in two steps to show things better. So I will keep this one. So the last man standing. So product controller has got dependency on product repository, and product repository has got dependency on the product context. The product context has got a parameterized constructor, but it doesn't have any dependencies. So in the dependency chain, the last man standing without any dependency will get constructed first. That will be injected to the repository, which will be injected to the products controller. So who is that who is holding everything? So let's put the debugger. Let's see this step by step. So this will take somewhere around 6 minutes time, Johnny. After that, we will show real quick 4 execution methods. I think
Hmm.
will be good.
Yeah.
So see this, guys. Right now, when we start without even hitting anything, when we create this web application builder, there are 81 dependencies due to lack of term. I'm calling it as built-in dependencies, or built the dependencies which are coming out of the box. One of the thing we were looking at this I configuration. is this one. You can see this I configuration, and a lot of other things are coming, I loggers and so and so. For lack of better terminology, I'm calling it as built-in dependencies or dependencies which are coming out of the box. So those were 81. I do F10 and F10. So now if I see the dependencies, it is 84. So 3 dependencies got added here. So we can get deep into the weeds to check the dependencies which we injected. I can quickly come in at the bottom. I should be able to see the things which we added here. Yeah, you see this MongoDB settings, the strongly typed configuration which we added, it's here. So I'll quickly walk. I think this, I just want to show here till this position. You see that it was 84. By the time we load everything, it is 190, 191. So here, if we go deep somewhere, we should be able to see our dependencies, the repository and the context here. Let's see that. It takes nothing more than 30 seconds for us to locate this guy. Match up policies. Yeah, see this MongoDB settings, the product context, product repository. So apart from all the other dependencies, we have loaded our dependencies. So that's the first step we want to understand. So what we want to understand is whatever we have loaded the money into our bank account. So we are loading whatever the dependencies we need across the project or across the solution. We have loaded into this service container, or I'm calling it as a bookshelf, a dependency injection container that has been loaded. Now we will see that how is this dependencies getting constructed. That's very important for us to understand. So we told that in the chain of dependencies, the last man standing who doesn't have any dependency, he will get constructed first, given to the guy who's waiting for him. So when I hit this and do a try it out and click on execute, you see that the last man standing who has got a parameterized constructor but he doesn't have any dependency, he will get constructed first. When I do continue, so you see that the product context has been constructed and got injected into the product repository. You see that the product context there in line number 10 is null, but here the dependency which got injected has got fully constructed object. Now what is happening is it will get injected into the dependency. Now this context is there. Now if I come back over here, it comes to the controller. At this point of time, you see that repository is null, but here the repository has been populated, and that repository has got a dependency on the context, and the context has been populated, and like this the chain will happen. Okay, now slowly we'll come back over here. Now you see this, the repository has been constructed, and context, and the context has got products, everything is there. I'm expecting a query from Johnny that who injected this iLogger. That I'm calling it as out of the box, or by default we saw that 81 dependencies before even we hit the first line of code. Maybe it's coming from that. So some of the dependencies I'm calling it is coming out of the box. Some are coming by we injecting. Anything to add, Johnny or Robbie, on this?
No,
I think
I think you're doing well there. I thought you explained that stack well.
No, it's a great demonstration for me. I mean, it just shows how, what is involved when you are doing something relatively straightforward, and all the dependencies, like you say, whether they're out of the box or whether we're injecting them, for our own reasons, that, it just goes to show it's a great way to demonstrate how you can actually look through some of these things to figure out issues potentially.
Exactly. These things are very, very small, Johnny. The dependencies, there are only one single line. There are places where you'll have dozens of dependencies. So having those here will clutter. Actually, we should technically move this one also. We'll eventually do that. But having a separate project just for dependency injection, we named it as infrastructure, but we could have named something else where we can have a purely dependency injection, like offloading all the dependency injection to this extension method will help us. But if you see this code perspective, it looks pretty similar. Like we can't differentiate whether it is our own dependencies or it is coming from the boilerplate code. Okay, so that's the final step of this is very, very important. There are few nitty-gritties which we need to focus on this one. Let's quickly walk through that. So the four modes of execution. So what are those four modes of execution? We'll show, and there are one good nitty-gritty we will face. Hope, I'm crossing fingers, we'll face that issue so that that will help everyone understand what are there. So when we are using uh, Johnny and Robbie, please feel free to chime in as and when you guys need. So the four modes of execution is when you click on this drop down, you see this IIS Express, you see this products API, you see this Docker and WSL. I never used it, but I use these three. So first question you can ask, where is this configuration? So that configuration is in this launch settings. So then inside this launch setting, you have profiles, and those three profiles, if I minimize this Docker, IIS Express, and products API, so you can clearly see that Docker, IIS Express, products API in the same order you're seeing it here. Point one. And the point two is, I think these are the nitty gritties which we need to know that if you want to do some kind of customization. So at this point of time, the launch URL is Swagger. That means when I execute this, that's the reason it is first showing the Swagger UI. I could have routed this to my products controller, but we want the Swagger, so we are happy with this. We are not touching it. So the first mode of execution is IIS.
Where do you see that?
What that's, sir?
You said that you're routing it to the Swagger. Where's the
launch URL?
The launch URL is /Swagger right there. Okay.
Yeah. At different place you see this, the launch URL.
That's a URL particle that gets added to the end whenever.
Exactly. If you want to route it to our controller, we can do that. I can add API /v1/products. It will route it. So that's a good question. We can give that a shot. So first, let's do this IIS Express, and we'll immediately change it. So we'll see two modes inside that IIS Express. We see part A and part B. I'm calling it for lack of better terminology. That's good. So you see this, the Swagger gets added, and it is here. So if I want to go and try something, I can try this here, try it out. I click on execute, and that executes, and you can see this, the same HTTPS. If I put it here, same local host, with the same local host, it is coming in. So to reach that API endpoint, I can do is I can copy this, I'll close it, and I'll come into this IIS Express. So only when it is IIS Express profile, it routes directly to the products. It doesn't go through Swagger. Now you see the difference. The previously, when we executed with IIS Express or Kestrel or different places, yeah.
You didn't save.
You must not have.
Yeah. It was starred, yeah. Do it again, I think.
Sorry, I missed it. I'm really sorry for that. So see this. So instead of Swagger, it routes to the API v1 products. But we need to stick to the Swagger. That is good for our health. So one important point. I apologize for my jokes, but I can't restrict myself. I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you, Swami. Whenever I see a page full of JSON, I start to get nervous.
I know. I thought I'm the only guy in this world. Okay, there are others with me. Okay, so one important point I would like to highlight here is when you execute this in IIS Express, you see that IIS Express over here, and you can see this executes in two modes. One is HTTPS, one in HTTP, and you can show all applications. So this is the first mode. And the second mode is when you want to execute in Kestrel. At this point of time, we didn't customize a lot of Kestrel. Whatever is coming out of the box, that itself is pretty good enough for us to execute and all the way go to prod deployment. So see this, when you execute this Kestrel, you see an extra window which appears. So when you execute in IIS Express, you see one icon of IIS over your system tray. But when you execute in Kestrel, you see this window, and that window is a pretty good guy who gives you a message. You can read if something goes wrong. You can come in here and you can read that. What lot of information we are spitting in. That's just for, as this is an demo project we are spitting in, but please ensure whenever you're doing it, don't give too much of information. And hackers are eagerly waiting near the door to hack multiple systems. Let's not give them the job. They'll come up with couple of coffees and hackers. So please be little vigilant on this one. Okay, now the third step and very important step. Here we are expecting we should face problems. Okay, problems are welcome. We will welcome problems with our both hands so that we will learn. Because until unless we hit with the problems, we don't know what is the solution for that. Okay, so right now let me switch to the third mode of execution is the Docker. So at this point of time, please understand that we have a Docker container, a Mongo. When I execute this, that will be another container inside this. At this point of time, you can see that we have Mongo container, and we don't have any other. We have this products API container. These are two independent containers. These are not being executed as part of the Docker Compose, but these are two independent containers. So one container is products.api and another container is Mongo, shop Mongo. So we'll see that where will be the problems arising and how we will be learning lessons from that. And what are those lessons? That questions we will see live when we hit with this problem. I'm crossing my fingers, Johnny, that we should get the problem. If not, we will not. Yeah, and until unless we practically see the problem, I don't feel like we are learning something.
So what did you set up with the local settings in Docker?
I'm sorry, what is that?
What did you set up? Is it set up to build a brand new Docker image, or what is it that whenever you set it to Docker, what is it that you're telling it to do?
Okay. It's like I'm executing a basic Docker file. We'll see that in a moment.
Yeah.
And that file will package this into a Docker image, and that image will get as a container. So that is what we are seeing here. We have two containers. We'll see the Docker file in a minute. And that is this one is running. So I'm going in here. I want to pull the content. So I click on execute, and that will fail. So why it is failing, we'll look into the Docker file and then we'll come and investigate why it is failing, how can we mitigate this. Okay, it will definitely fail. In the meanwhile, let's come back to that solution and find the Docker file.
The request is in a timeout right now. That's how it's failing.
Yeah, it's not able to hit this container because both are in the same world. Both are in the Docker. Both are Docker containers. This is one container. Oh, there you go. It failed. So this is another container. This guy is unable to talk. Like two different containers within the same world are unable to speak to each other. Okay, that's cool. So first, let's spend 1 quick minute time to understand the Docker file. How do you do this tooling? I can't stop praising this tooling, any tooling. Like nowadays, this tooling has become like a gated community. You don't need to go anywhere. Like you see this, you have code coverage, you have Test Explorer, you have SQL Server, you have Azure Cloud Explorer, you have AWS Explorer. Is this a tool or is this an entire software system? I don't know. See this. I have one tool. I can do anything and everything here. I can speak. We saw that there were web publishing activities there. I can connect to Azure tools. I can connect to AWS tools. I can have the Docker container tools. I have SQL Server tools. I can write stored procedure. I can view the data. I don't know what I can't do in this. Serious tooling things now, improvements. And how do you do? Simple thing. When you want to work only with the Docker, all you can do is add, click on the API project, add, and click on Docker support. That will create this Docker file. So that Docker file, you please create it once you build this entire project. Because what happens is, once you build this all these layers and then you create a Docker file, so the Docker file is so intelligent, it goes and it finds out what all the dependencies it has got, this API project has, and it does a pretty good job of doing this entire thing. So here it starts with the base image, creates an app directory and exposes 80 and 83, and that's the base image. And here we need SDK. This is just like a runtime, but in this SDK we need a thicker layer where we need all the build tools and everything. So it creates a working directory, it copies all this solution, and then it does a .NET restore, and then it runs this .NET build on this project, and that they are pushing it to app build. So the app folder is here, and inside that they are putting it here. And then from build, that means we have marked this step 8, the step 8 as build. So from that step, we are creating another multi-stage build. We are saying that this is a publish. So do a .NET publish into this. And then from base means this lighter or just a runtime. It doesn't have all the SDK and other tools. It is a lighter version of that image. From that,
can I ask a
yes,
question, John?
Yes, sir.
Are those froms like? Is this done in a fashion? Is this multi-threaded? What's the reason for the froms?
It's taking, well, yeah, I mean, effectively you've got two different images that you're doing, one for your build, isn't it? You've got one build in the actual application up, and the other one is with all the SDK additional gumph, for want of a better word, that goes in to actually build that. Then you're running the .NET publish from the one image. And then finally, what you do in that base image, that from base, which is the ASP core, is it ASP core image? You're creating the app folder and then taking the contents from that app publish folder and effectively creating your entry point to your application, aren't you? So, I mean...
So, yeah, my question was really just trying to understand, whenever it says from, you don't know if it's a location like on disk or if it means wait until that step has completed and all the pieces in it completed.
Yeah, I think it's sequential. I think they go through it sequentially, doesn't it? So it is not multi-threaded.
We'll see here.
You tell me.
See, when we do the build, you can see that when we do the build of this Docker, see, this guy is removing an existing image. And they will recreate that. Okay, so once we execute this, you will see this step by step. They execute all these Docker file, and you see that one. So it goes and step by step it creates this volumes and everything. It creates step by step. I mean, once I'll show you in a minute how it creates all these things. Good that you asked this question. Let me switch back here. And here, if you see that, I need to create this in a bigger window. And thanks to my colleague Apar Sharma, who's an expert in infra side. He will be a guest speaker with us shortly. See this containerized to Docker. If I execute this, so technically this guy is executing the Docker. So how this Docker gets executed is, you can see that. See, it first it comes step by step. It executes it. So you can see this, the step 1, it executes, and it's not building it all the time. See, some of the layers is already there, so it uses the cache. And sometimes, and these are step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the 9th one it is copying. 10th is it creates this working directory. 11th, it does the .NET build, and then it does a .NET publish, and then it's determining the projects to be restored. It is restoring. So these layers, the advantage of the layers is that, and it is a parallel execution. We'll see that when it is pushing, you see that the execution is parallel. How can we tell that parallel is? You see that some of the see this, it's not doing it sequentially. Some it starts and some it says that it is completed, some it says that it is downloading. So if you see net, if you see that it is using, see, already existing. So when the layer is available, it uses that layer. It's like the excellent technology, serious technology.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay, looks like I derailed it. I'm sorry for that. Let me come back.
No, you
No, I was
actually-
gonna say, Swami, that's the Docker. The Docker itself is either, like you say, using layers. Because my understanding of Docker is when something changes, rather than changing the whole image, it will just add another layer on. So if you do multiple changes to a Docker image as you build it or as you create it, you potentially do have a multitude of layers that it creates. That's my understanding, anyway.
Exactly. If that layer, in this previous example, when we saw that something didn't change, so in that case, it's not at all doing anything. In that, you see this, we didn't change anything. It clearly said that, hey guys, you didn't change anything in this project, so I'm taking it the cache layer. See that it's not even doing anything. It's
But
just
I guess the other thing to think of there as well is, especially for others, is that if you've not got that image locally stored, then part of that process is it's going to download the image again from the source
exactly
repository.
these layers. These layers,
Yes.
layers. If it doesn't exist, it will bring it from the hub or wherever the repository is, and
images,
that's another session's. Exactly, that's another session two's discussion. I mean, I think we jumped into the other territory, the session two's content also, but that's good. That discussion was needed. Okay, now coming back to this, we were able to successfully execute with IIS, and we were able to successfully execute with Kestrel. Now we have the Docker Mongo container here in front of us. In front of our eyes, it is there. But why is that we are unable to talk to that guy? Is he angry with us? No, it's not that he's angry. He's always open. We have to understand that what is that we are missing. So we have to come to this app settings. Inside this app settings, what is the connection string? We are saying that MongoDB localhost 2701. Is it the port? Let's come and probe it. So he's saying, yes, exactly. That is there. So that means we will be able to connect to it if you are executing with IIS Express or with Kestrel. But if it is another container, that means imagine this is an API container, this is the MongoDB container. If this API container says localhost, that means it is within the container. Within the container, there is no localhost. That means it is a container to container communication, right? So how does this container know? How can it speak to this? That's a pretty good point of exploration. So if we come to network, if you come to this network, so, hold on. Okay, so I'll come. It's not here. So what will happen is we need to find out the IP address, the public IP. Like how do we identify ourselves? So what we will do is we will go and first we will execute Docker PS. Once we execute this Docker PS and go and search, because I have a lot of these images, go and search for an image where it is Mongo. So this Mongo image, that's the name of this. And we can use the first 3 letters or 2 letters, whatever it is. I'm comfortable using first 5 letters. Okay.
It just has to identify it uniquely.
Exactly. It has to. So I'm saying that Docker inspect 7236C. So when I click on what? So Docker inspect 7236C. When I type it, we are inspecting, we are going into that inspection mode to find out lots and lots of information. I mean, if you have time, we can dig deeper into these files. But net, it has got all the information. What is the driver and the working folder? Deep dive, we can do the mounts and where it is mounting, what is a working directory. A lot of things are there. We might grow too old by the time we dig into that information. I want to stick to this. So we need to have the IP address, the gateway as well as the IP address. So the IP address is 172.17.0.2. So can I change this? I can very well do that. If I change this, then how will I execute it with IIS or Kestrel? It will trouble me. So, what is the other option do we have? The other option we have is, if you come to this Docker, here you can create an environment variables. So it's MongoDB settings underscore underscore. So there is a very good documentation which was given by Microsoft, like you know uh, app settings
Maybe
in
we
.NET.
can you attach
Can-
this afterwards? Remember to attach this for people to be able to find what you're referring to.
Yes, exactly. So this documentation has given that example. So wherever we use this parent-child relationship, position colon title, in the deployment, we should not use that colon. So what we should use double underscore. Okay, I'll paste that one. So here the hierarchy of this is the MongoDB settings colon connection string. So while injecting, it should be MongoDB settings underscore underscore connection string. And here in the MongoDB, we said that 172.17.0.3 dot the port number, but the IP address has changed to 2.
Yeah.
So that's where we face the problem, and that's how we learned it. So now I added this. We can execute it.
On
Execute
Docker
this.
again. Yeah.
Exactly. We are executing on Docker. So now what is happening is one Docker container, he's speaking to the another Docker container and he's using the IP address. That means it's like two virtual machines speaking to each other on their public IP.
I have a quick question. Whenever we
Yes, sir.
deploy this, will it be in a Docker image? Will the API be the microservice be in a Docker image?
Could you please repeat that?
Will the API be a Docker image in deployment?
Uh, API image will be deployed initially to Docker on our local machine in session 1. In session 2, we will take this same API image, we'll push it to Docker Hub as well as to Azure Container Registry. And then from there, from Docker Hub and from Azure Container Registry, we'll deploy that to Azure Container Instance as a single container instance. At that time, we will use Mongo Atlas. And then the next step will be we will be using the Mongo container as well as this into app service. So multi-container app service. And then we'll progress it to Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Like that, we'll do a progressive improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
So it will be by the end of session 6, it will be pretty much an action. See this, the moment it's not giving you data within 5 to 6 seconds,
Yeah.
you need to understand there's something really wrong. It's there. Now, the final action of the show is I need to stop this container because it does have its own Docker Compose. I think the Docker Compose discussion will keep. I'm stopping this container because Docker Compose will come with its own this thing. But we will
That's
discuss
the
when we are.
MongoDB that you just stopped.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
MongoDB container and the Docker Compose file. Let's discuss in the next session. I thought that we will have a time to discuss it, but at least we'll show that the Docker Compose has got one service. We have the Mongo and one API service. Rest will come and we'll discuss. And it is giving the Docker file. And in the Compose, this is where it is very, very important. In this Compose, where just compare these two things real quick. When you are executing inside Docker container, that means the database is in another container, API is in another container. You need to give the public IP of the database container. Maybe it is a Redis or SQL Server or Postgres or whatever the data store. I'm calling it as data store generic. So give that. When you are executing using the Docker Compose, inside the Docker Compose, you have named the container. You said that this is my service. And here you're naming the container name. The container name is productsdb. that we are giving it here. We are not giving the public IP. We don't know what public IP it is. Okay, and also we are telling that this products API depends on this products DB. We'll come and we'll do a deep dive when we are doing the session 2 in 2 weeks from now. But let me execute, and I will allow people to have their happy weekend. It's Friday in Wales as well as in London, UK, and US. So in India, it's almost 11 p.m.
Yeah, 6:30 here in the UK.
Okay, I don't want the audience to stop celebrating their weekend. So here we can see this. Okay, this is very good point. I'll take 2 minutes of the time, audience. I'm really sorry if I'm holding you back.
I take too long talking about MongoDB and stuff. I apologize if I was taking too long.
No,
I
but
don't
because
think so.
these
Not at all.
Okay. See, this is a good place for us to learn, Robbie. You can see this when we execute in the Docker container. See, that guy is doing the same step base. From base, he's creating step 1 of 2. Then he's doing a cache, and something is exporting, and then step by step they execute it. This is where we will find is how he is creating the Docker container. So entire steps will be there if you scroll here. So you can see this Docker container and the Docker Compose,
Compose.
and the Docker Compose has got 2 containers, and those 2 containers. This is another container which is getting created when we execute it as part of the Docker. As part of the Docker, when you execute individual Docker, at the time this is one container, MongoDB was another container. There was a communication issue between those 2 containers. That's a different thing. When we create a Docker Compose, again it creates these 2 containers bundled up. These two got married together as part of the Docker Compose. Okay.
Can you share that one more time where you launched that from? How did you get the Docker Compose to compose?
Oh, okay. Sure. I'll do that. So I will stop this.
Oh,
and
Compose is in the launch settings.
Yeah, no, I will show you. There is a catch. So right now the Docker Compose is here. If you want to dismantle the Docker Compose, all you need to do is come back over here and do a clean solution. The moment you do a clean solution, watch out on this output. This guy goes and he does the clean of the project, and immediately is executing a command called Docker Compose, and he's killing it. He's killing this down. He will execute this Docker Compose with those files, and they execute a Docker Compose down. So that will kill this all the containers, and it will clean it. Okay. So we can see it is stopping, and it is removing those images. Docker rm remove, and it is removing those containers from it. Killed everything. So when we come back over here, we will not find those Docker Compose. You can try locating it. We will not find that because it kills everything. So as I was demonstrating, we can do multiple things. If you select the API project as the startup project, if you select API project as the startup project, you have 3 options. That is, you can execute using IIS Express, execute using the Kestrel, executing using the Docker. Docker, it shows when you add right mouse click and add the Docker support. That's when you will get an extra configuration inside your inside your properties. So the launch settings is the one where you have Docker, IIS Express, and Kestrel. Now,
Yeah.
if you want the Docker Compose, what you have to do is come to the Docker Compose project, right mouse click, and set that as startup project. The moment you set that as a startup project, that's when it gives you an option of this Docker Compose. Right now, if you see this, there are no Docker Compose, and this is a very important piece where anyone who's interested to dig deeper, the one we saw in the other window, Robbie. Similarly, we can come in here. I will clear this off, and I'm clicking on Docker Compose. Now see this, it removed all those containers. You see the magic. So first it builds and it restores, and that's when it knows that where is the Docker file to create the API project. So here you see this, the Docker Compose is here, and it knows, it goes and it picks up the Docker file, and then it is executing the Docker file, and then it is creating the products DB, and it is created, and then this has started creating, and this has started, the product DB has started, then only this guy is starting the API. So we said we added a dependency that API depends upon the database. So until the database gets created, the API will not start. So now you can come back to this one. You can see that nicely these two got married under the leadership of this Docker Compose.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you
Okay.
for doing that.
It's perfect.
So yeah. There you go.
Very good.
And it's all still working,
Wow.
Swami. So that's the main thing. We see green text.
I know. I know. I mean,
We
this
hope to
is the
make
more.
lots of money off of that green text.
Yes.
Okay, so all the just for the audience and just for us, none of my show will be with slides. I'm a zero slide guy. I don't come with PowerPoints. I will come with the MD file and purely hands-on. So that's how I love to learn.
No, I mean that's been
shall-
perfect. It's been perfect, Swami. I think we got to the point where we needed to for episode 1. And look, it's been our first episode, our first live stream, and I think it's gone quite successfully. Got to the point. I think on to
Okay.
episode 2 now. So for everybody watching, thanks for sticking around. Been answering a couple of questions in the chat as we've been going. So yeah, I think we can wrap this show up now then, I guess, guys, and we can look out for our next episode, which will be
Yeah,
in
do you have a couple minutes?
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I mean, the idea what we started developing and the journey which we thought to travel was very good. Really, I'm seeing the benefits when Robbie and me we do pair programming every week. Weekend we do pair programming, and I learn many things from Robbie when I'm talking. When we are doing the pair programming, the way he investigates, the way he looks into the problem, I seriously like that. I mean, I tell to my friends that Robbie is my guru. So I seriously. I mean, I'm not telling when he's here, but I told many of my colleagues that I learn a lot of things from Robbie. And Johnny, and I think I need to learn a lot of things from you, from the ops world of the site. I need to.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if I've got anything to add, guys, because you've done a sterling job so far with this the demonstration, and I know the areas we covered have been really interesting, and certainly areas I've been looking at over the last couple of years. So yeah, I think onwards and upwards now.
Okay, so
Session 2, I'll have one little addendum that goes back to session 1, where I'm just going to show, I believe anyway, running the same things that we've just looked at, not in as much detail, but at least the happy path of that in macOS. We're just going to explore loading up the same project in macOS, and I'll be able to show that because I do everything on a Mac.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and we're going to take a look at that in the next episode, I guess, Robbie. Yeah.
Oh, next episode we'll be adding a little bit more features to the existing features. So we already passed level 0. Now we'll go to level 1. We'll add new features, and Robbie will be showcasing how can we execute this entire solution on his Mac box. Then I will show how can we execute this on Ubuntu. So Windows 10, Mac OS, Ubuntu, like .NET everywhere. And then we will work on some of the scripts. How do you push this in Mac OS or Ubuntu? How do you push this from your local machine to Docker Hub? How do you push it from your local machine to Azure Container Registry? And then how do you take those images and deploy it to Azure Container Instance? Like, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now when I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
So a lot of action in the second episode. I mean, we will try to keep this action throughout our 15, 20, or whatever the number of episodes we are planning. We'll do the same kind of action episodes every
Yeah.
bi-weekly.
Well, awesome, guys. This has
Any-
been a lot of fun, and I think a good success of the first live stream. So, yeah, anything else to add, or are we going to say goodbye to our audience?
Do we have any questions to discuss?
Not as such.
or-
I think. Go on, Robbie.
Everything.
I was waving goodbye. I was like, yeah, happy April Fool's Day, guys.
We'll analyze and bring them back up in the next episode, I think.
Oh, okay, sure. My younger one is waiting here. If I don't give attention to him, he'll come on the live stream.
Not a bad thing.
Bye,
Right.
guys.
Thanks for watching,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night, folks.
See you all in a 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks' time. See you soon.
Sure. Bye.